Wait, little question for you if you don't mind. Are you sure we've got time? It's just a quickie. Albert? Yes? Have you killed anyone while we've been here in Lechlade? Me? Yes. No. Sure about that. Just, I wonder if it's the kind of thing you might forget. Yes, I'm sure. Well, no one's significant.
Welcome everyone to a special bonus episode of Haunting the Narrative. So I am Meg.
And I'm Lizzie.
And today we're here, as we said, for a special episode. We are Americans only today. So we are going to talk about Jonathan Stroud's latest series, the superb Scarlett and Browne. And we'll see if Natasha and Mairead ever let us do this again after today. But we'll see.
I may be trying some British accents, and it may be that we just lose all of our listeners across the pond, and I apologize in advance.
Yeah, you can blame it on us. Like, you know, Natasha and Mairead are sure to be horrified by it all. I am not going to be attempting accents because my ability for accents is similar to Lockwood's, which is to say bad. But anyway, for those of you who don't know, the first book of the trilogy, The Outlaws, Scarlett and Browne, was published in 2021. And then it was followed by the second book, The Notorious Scarlett and Browne, which is my favorite title, in 2022. The third book, The Legendary Scarlett and Browne, was recently released in the UK back in January, and it will be released in the US on March 25th. So that means if you're American, if you get started now, you have time to read the first two books before the third releases, which is exactly why we wanted to do this episode today.
But Meg, why should you read this series at all?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about, Lizzie.
This is why Nat and Mairead are going to be horrified. We're going to do the cheesiest. Like, we are professional podcasters, and we're totally not, and it's going to be fantastic. Sorry, guys.
It's going to be great. This is what happens when you leave us to our own devices, which no one should be surprised who I feel like has read any of our fic, because we are probably like the two like fluff lovers of the group. So we're going to give you a little bit of cheese today. But what we're gonna try our best not to do today is to give you a bunch of spoilers. So as much as possible, we are going to try to keep this episode spoiler free, but we will address some basic elements of the plot, primarily from book one, because otherwise we would be able to tell you absolutely nothing. But just putting that disclaimer out there to everyone so that you know what to expect as we go through the rest of the pod. So I'm going to kick things off with sharing our initial experiences of this series. And I'm going to turn it over to Lizzie. Lizzie, what did you think and how did you get into this series?
Yeah, so this is really Nat's fault. Nat and also Cat Mom Tack were both big fans of the first couple of books when they came out. Or at least they read them after Lockwood Co, I think. So the first two books were out and they were both bugging me to read them. So I really enjoyed book one when I read it. And then I kind of decided to save book two because I knew book three was going to be coming out in like a year. And I didn't want to be like left on a cliffhanger or anything. Book one ends fairly satisfactorily. So for some reason I decided to save book two until book three was coming out. Now that I've read book two, I kind of wish I had just read it because it's fantastic. And it also has a great ending and would have been a fine place to sit and kind of chew my fingernails until book three came out. I'm actually still in the middle of book three. I've only read about the first, 20% of it. How do I have book three at all? How do you have book three, Meg?
Yeah, so this is actually a very fun story that is all due to the podcast. So a few weeks ago, I was in Switzerland on vacation, and Nat flew to Switzerland for the day to hang out with me, and we got to meet for the first time. And it was like the week after Scarlett and Browne had released. So she brought me 2 copies of Scarlett and Browne, which was fantastic. So I brought them both back with me to the US, and then I shipped one to Lizzie. So that is how we both have copies of this book that is not out yet in the UK. Not out yet in the US, but it's all due to the magic of podcast friendships.
And Cat Mom Tech, actually, she ordered a copy from the UK. and managed to get it sent to her. I don't know if we're allowed to be saying any of this, or if the UK publishers are going to be mad, or the US publishers are going to get mad and get us in trouble. But yeah, there are ways if anybody is anxiously awaiting book 3. Or you can just wait a month and it'll be out here.
Yeah, it'll be out very soon. So
I will say also that I have listened to the audiobooks. I listened to all of book 2 as an audiobook, and I've listened to part of book 1 in audiobook, and it is fantastic. Anybody who enjoys audiobooks, I highly recommend it. The voice acting is stellar. I love her accents. Scarlett in particular is just so fun when she's really acted out and given that oomph of her character. You get all of her grump and her sarcasm and her exasperation with Albert. It's really good.
And as far as me, I have not listened to any of the audiobooks, although Lizzie is definitely selling them to me very well through her little spiel. But I saved these books actually for a very long time because I knew I'd like them because I just love Stroud's writing so much. And I kind of like hoarded them because I was like, ooh, I want to save them for the right time. And then what ended up happening is, as I said, I was on this vacation right after the book 3 came out. So I ended up saving and reading book 1 and 2 for my vacation. I got book 3 during the vacation from Nat, and then I read it as soon as I got home. And that was so great. So I basically read them all over the course of 3 weeks. I am now done with book 3, and I just adored them all the way
I
through.
could imagine taking, especially the first book, on a vacation to Britain, and how fun that would be to like travel around England while you're reading the story of these kids traveling around a post-apocalyptic England. That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in England, obviously. I was in Switzerland, as I've mentioned, but I was still like taking the train around and traveling, and they were very good companions, for sure. So I think, particularly the first one is a great travel book. But kind of with that, we're going to get into some specific reasons why we think you should read Scarlett Browne. We have 5 reasons for you today. So, Lizzie, do you want to kick it off for us?
Yeah, so I've already alluded to the fact that this takes place in a dystopian Britain. And really, the world building, the setting, the plot for these books is fantastic. I was sucked right into it. I immediately wanted to know more about the world. It's very action-packed, which is fantastic. The first book, like I said, is traveling. They're traveling kind of downriver and encountering things along the way, which is super fun. And book 2 is more of a heist. Everybody loves a good heist. I would say that if Lockwood Co. was Stroud's Sherlock Holmes, then this is his young Indiana Jones. It has all the hallmarks of Indiana Jones. Kind of Indiana Jones meets Wild West a little bit.
Yeah, and if the idea of a British Wild West is confusing to you, it works.
It totally works.
Somehow it works. And it is so fun. That is one of my favorite elements about the setting of this book is like the Wild West British dystopian. It's so unique. I think so many dystopian YA books, at least that I've read, have been set in the United States. And I think this is a really interesting, unique take on it.
Yeah, and having a red-headed, grumpy, young, teenaged Indiana Jones character as one of our main characters is very compelling. And I don't know if I want to say it's super original because we've already got Indiana Jones, but let me tell you, it works.
It totally works. And a lot of that I would attribute to how well Stroud writes it. Like, as I was reading these books, I was messaging the other members of the podcast to be like, the world building is so good because even though you're in this very unique setting, you never get like that big info dump of information at one time. It never like hits you over the head. And I feel like that is so hard to do as a writer, and it's really subtle, built-in world building, and it's just a delight to read because of that. And it is incredibly action-packed.
The narration will just kind of casually drop like, oh, you can't go there. That's where the giant ticks are. Or, oh, don't put your bedroll there. It'll get eaten by a blood mole. And you're like, what? What's a blood mole? It doesn't stop to explain. It just kind of assumes you know.
Yeah, if you're the kind of person who likes weird creatures in your book, these books have so many weird creatures, most of which that will kill you instantly or like at least harm you, but like just really fun to read about, and there's always something new.
Yeah, 9-foot-long albino otters, river otters that will eat people, giant man-eating owls. There's so many great creatures.
Such great creatures. So fun. A little bit terrifying, but fun.
There's also a lot of great references to like ruins. There's the buried cities and the burning lands. And again, it's just part of the geography, and it's so subtly done, but you can picture it and you can imagine it because they don't give a ton of details, especially if it's things kind of off in the distance or just part of the land. It's just enough detail to really paint the picture while letting your imagination run wild, which I love. And I especially love it for a kind of a children's or a YA novel.
Exactly. Yeah, like one of my favorite details, and this isn't a spoiler because it's literally the map on the first page, is that like London has somehow turned into a lagoon and like the city is basically gone. And that's just like a fascinating image to imagine that like I think about all the time now. So there's lots of really great world building in this book, and I am very impressed with how Stroud manages to weave it all together.
Absolutely.
Okay, with that, I think we're going to go on to reason number 2, and that is, of course, the wonderful characters in this book. So our 2 main characters are Scarlett and Albert. Albert is Scarlett Browne, so that's where the title comes from, and they are so fantastic. So Scarlett, and in many ways, as we've mentioned already, is a classic Western hero. She is very confident and self-sufficient and independent, but she's also a thief. That's kind of one of our first interactions with her. She's not afraid to kill somebody if she needs to, but she has a secret heart of gold underneath it all. I feel like this is also a great Western thing about her. She swears a lot, and that is kind of very critical to her character. And it's used, I think, also sometimes for humorous effect in the books, which is great.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes she swears, but other times Stroud does his classic, like, she says something loudly and then she puts a coin in her swear box. So you knew it was swearing, but you don't know what it was.
You can imagine. You can read between the lines of what she's saying.
Exactly.
But yeah, she's such a great example of like kind of he's taking kind of a classic trope here, and in his very Stroud-like way, he's done it so intelligently and so smartly that it works. And
I think you missed a key aspect of her character though, which is the hat.
Oh, yes, she wears a big wide-brimmed hat for a lot of the books.
Very Western hero. There's silhouettes on the book covers that I love, and I especially love the ones where she's wearing the hat.
Yes, the hat is very important to her image, and that is very Wild West for sure. So Scarlett is, very competent. And then we have Albert, who is also competent, but in very different ways.
Oh, wait, did you want to read the quote about Scarlett?
Oh, yeah, you would have to read the quote.
Scarlett McCain had plenty of imagination. Too much, in fact. It was something she could not eat, nor fight with, nor sell to give her tangible benefit, and she regretted having it.
Excellent. That's like a classic, I feel like. Very brief, but very key insight to Scarlett's character. It tells us a lot about her very quickly and what she values in the world.
Do you know, I think there's layers here too, because you were saying she's a thief with a heart of gold. And I think when we have this quote, we maybe don't know so much about her heart of gold yet, but you're starting to see the layers of her character. And like who she would be if she hadn't been kind of forced into this rough loner life. She has imagination and she cares about people, and so there's a wonderful tension within her of these things of like who she could have been and who she's been forced to be. I think that leads to a lot of her grumpiness.
100%. I mean, she's also like usually sleeping on the ground and like fighting all these terrible creatures, as we've mentioned. I would be grumpy if that was my life.
That's a good point. Oh, and we've said like she has curly hair canonically in the books. It talks about her ringlets, but she's out living rough all the time. Her hair must be such a rat's nest.
For context, Lizzie and I both have curly hair, especially Lizzie. So like the idea of having to deal with that hair.
Yeah, that would make me so grumpy. Just that alone, nothing else.
Exactly.
All right, and then we have Albert. And Albert is our new set of eyes on the world. He's naive. He's very naive. And yet sometimes he has these sarcastic little joke moments that we're like, maybe not as naive as you pretend to be sometimes. He's relentlessly optimistic, which is always fun to have, especially next to our Grumpasaurus that is Scarlett. He's kind, but also kind of amoral in a way that's funny because it's realistic. Like, if you have been sheltered your whole life and you don't know much, you want to be kind to people, but also if somebody hurts you, you're just gonna hit them back. Like, you're not even gonna think twice about it. You're not even gonna think about the moral implications. Nobody's tried to train you to have morals, so it feels very realistic when that happens.
Yeah, I love Scarlett, but I have to admit, Albert is my favorite character, and I just adore him. He also just, like, loves nature, and his, like, inner narration is, like, waxing poetic about, like, leaves and trees and flowers all the time, and it's very sweet. But he's also, especially in book one, is very clumsy, and so he's, like, wandering around, and Scarlett is yelling at him for making noise, and it's also canon that he's constantly wearing this, like, oversized sweater and shoes that are huge. So he's just such a great image.
I love how unapologetic he is actually about all of that, too, because he sees no reason that he shouldn't be weak and clumsy. Like, he's doing his best. What do you expect of him? There's no shame. He has no shame, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, that is actually such a good point about Albert. He has no shame because part of it is because he grew up very, very sheltered. And so maybe he doesn't kind of learn some of those social mores, but he is also just really secure in who he is in some ways. And I think it really shows in his character, and I just adore him.
That's a good point, actually, because he loves everyone and he loves himself. He has a lot of self-love, and I love that for him.
And he really, you know, we talked about how he's naive, but I think a lot of that does come out of him, where his desire to really see the best in people. So until someone has really shown him that they don't deserve to be trusted, he is willing to trust them, while Scarlett is like, you have to earn Scarlett's trust. And that's not easy to do. So they really balance each other nicely in that way, I think.
Absolutely. All right, so I want to read this quote. This is actually from Albert, all right? "Unknown girl or woman," he said softly, "I thank you for your companionship, brief though it was, and wish you well in whatever afterlife you find yourself. I shall remember you always, your hair, your scowl, the roll of your green eyes. I am only sorry I never learned your name." A voice came from the bear, a muffled growl as from a pit in the earth. "Will you stop that warbling and help me?" it cried. "I'm not dead."
So
this is very early in the book, and it's so funny.
It is so funny. I hope it's just as funny out of context, but it is so good. And I think this really gets to, like, everything I love about Albert's narration and, like, how he sees the world right here. And just, it's so delightful. So we talked a little bit about both Scarlett and Albert, but and the dynamic of their relationship, which clearly they're partners. They develop a friendship, but in typical Stroud-like fashion, there is also kind of very subtle romance between the two of them. And it is, once again, just like Lockwood and Lucy are written in Lockwood Co. I think it's really excellently written. It's not super overt, but I would say it grows kind of throughout the series. I don't think that's really a spoiler. And I think they're very different from Lockwood and Lucy in some ways, but there are a couple ways they're kind of similar, which is that similar to Lockwood and Lucy, they once again kind of have a bit of a grumpy sunshine vibe, which if you listen to our Loch Lyle episode, you heard us talk about that trope, which is basically that one person is obviously grumpy and one person sunshine. And much like Lockwood and Co., Scarlett is grumpy and Albert is sunshiny, which just really speaks to the fact that Stroud, I think, seems to really like his female main characters kind of feral and grumpy, and he likes his male main characters smiley, but very dangerous, actually, underneath those smiles.
So aside from the points we just mentioned, I've heard a lot of people actually say they're more like a gender-swapped Lockwood and Lucy, because Scarlett has that same kind of sharp, wild energy when she's on a job that Lockwood has. But I actually think they're a little bit more like Flo and George. It's like, especially the first book, is Flo and George go on holiday down the river together.
Which is a book I would read, for the record.
Yeah, because Albert has that intense curiosity that George has. And Scarlett is the same kind of like, doesn't care what anybody thinks. She's a mess. She's always living rough. She's on her own unapologetically. So there's a very kind of Flo and George energy to them. I mean, really, they're not like any of the characters from Lockwood Co, right? Which is what you want. They are their own thing very much so. And I love them both dearly. They grew on me very quickly as I was reading the books.
Yeah, I think by the time you get to the quotes that we read earlier, which honestly both happen, like, you know, very quickly in the book, I love them both already. Like, they're very easy to get attached to.
And I think it maybe helps that, like, they're meeting each other for the first time at the very beginning of book 1. And so we're getting attached to them as they're getting attached to each other, which is very sweet.
Yeah, we get to see the real development of their relationship, particularly over book 1, which is really nice.
Yeah. All right, so we have talked a lot, and we're still only through 2 points. So let's try to get through these last 3 points. Why you should read Scarlett and Browne. So the third one is the writing. Stroud's prose is so good. I mean, if you've read Lockwood Co, then you know this already. It's different here because it is in third-person narration, and it's an alternating point of view. And it's not even just an alternating point of view, actually. We get some points of view that are not from either Albert or Scarlett. We occasionally get, like, rando bank manager and his point of view on being robbed by a 19-year-old girl, which is fun.
Yes, that's true. It's primarily Scarlett and Browne. It's primarily Scarlett and Albert, but we do get fun other bits of other points of views too.
And you get the really distinctive character voices, especially for Scarlett and for Albert, but also for the other characters. And I think that you see that in Lockwood Co as well, even though it's all from Lucy's point of view. When other characters are talking, like, they have really distinctive voices. You really get that in the audiobooks, especially with the accents and everything. I couldn't really write any fanfic for Scarlett and Browne until I listened to the second book as an audiobook, and now I feel like I've got Scarlett's voice in my head. I could write her dialogue really easily.
That's interesting.
It's so fun. It's such a fun voice to write in, actually.
She is very fun. I have not tried to write any fic for her, but I can see her voice particularly being fun. I think I'd actually really like to try and write Albert's point of view because I feel like I could really let his inner poetic side out, and that would be fun.
Absolutely. And he can be so cheerful and so curious, and then also just fine with straight up murder. So you can really play with that point of view. It's very fun.
Yeah, he's like,
but we're not talking about our writing. We're talking about Stroud's writing, which is really good.
Stroud's writing is so good. I mean, incredibly hard to emulate, honestly. And because one thing I particularly noticed in this book, and it's also true in Lockwood Co, of course, but just the descriptions in this book, especially like all the world building bits like that we were talking about with the lagoon and all the creatures and all the creepy things that they encounter. That was really fun to read, and those descriptions were simultaneously sometimes hilarious and beautiful, which is a really hard thing to do.
I got so kind of lulled by the beautiful descriptions of the like the geography that then sometimes something like creepy or scary or action-packed would happen, and I'd be like, wait, what? I was having a vacation.
Exactly. Especially in book 1. I think that's very much the vibe.
Yeah. What is this terrifying monster suddenly jumping out of the trees at us?
Exactly. The other thing is, like, oh God, the action in this book is so fun to read. Like, just because
so fun.
It really pulls you in. It's so well written. When you get to, like, certain parts, like, you'll know when you encounter them. It's almost impossible to set the book down. It's very much one of those because you really want to know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, there's a bunch of really fun set pieces, especially in book 2, which, I mean, maybe I'm a little biased because I just read it. But there's a great sequence in the Buried City, the finale of that book, the, like, almost finale, and then the actual finale, both really great action set pieces. There's a couple of points where, like, something's exploding and someone's flying through the air and trying to catch onto the lip of something, and I can see it so clearly. It's so cinematic in the way that it's described, everything that's happening. And I really like the kind of the challenges that are set up by some of these environments, like especially the Buried City. Like, you have to go in and find your way, and you have to get out. And it reminds me of like a really great tabletop role-playing game, which I've played a lot of in my life. I'm an unapologetic nerd, okay? I don't have Mairead here
We
to
all
tease
are.
me about it, but
We all are. It's fine.
but yeah, the kind of the challenges that the environment sets up for the characters leads to some really fun action set pieces. And like book 2 is basically a heist. I don't know if I said that already, but it's really good.
Yeah. I also love a heist. Like, one of my favorite things in books and in movies. And the heist in book 2 is just so fun to read. It's really great. And there are smaller heists throughout. Like, it's not a spoiler.
Of course, because they're outlaws and they're notorious deeds.
Exactly. So, love the heists. They're excellent. Okay, so now we're going to transition to reason 4 you should read Scarlett Browne, which we've already hinted at a couple times, which is that it is so funny. Like, I was cracking up, like, reading this book in public, and because it's just so good. It's like, and just, I mean, we've read a couple funny quotes, but we're going to read a couple more in a minute, but the humor is just classic. It's, in some moments, it's actually very Skull-like, and I love the Skull's humor. And Lockwood Co, like, he's so sharp, and that same kind of humor definitely is present in this book as well.
And we also get some of Lucy's humor, like her really dry, witty descriptions of things. That's definitely here in spades. I was laughing out loud several times during the book and like reading bits to my husband. And so I've now convinced him to read the books. He's partway through book 1.
Yeah, they're so funny. I mean, I highlighted and like annotated the entire first 2 books as I read them on my Kindle. And there's so many passages I highlighted just because they're so funny. And
I wish I'd done that so that I could go back and find them.
Oh, highly recommend. Highly recommend. And so we actually have 2 of those we're going to talk about right now. Lizzie, do you want to read the first one? I can read the second one. I won't make you read all the quotes, but I will not do an accent.
Sure. She glanced across. The boy was still tottering listlessly through the debris. Can't you go a bit faster than that? She said. A corpse could have made it by now. The boy looked pained. I'm trying. My bottom's numb. What's that got to do with it? Makes my legs stiff. Right up here, see? At the back of my thighs. Oh, my buttocks are like concrete. See, this is Albert being so unapologetic. Like, my butt's numb. You can't hurry me up.
And just has no shame about, like, this is to a girl he's just met.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's not Lockwood trying to impress his teen crush. Nah, not even a little bit.
No.
Unapologetically himself.
So unapologetic and delightful. And on that note, it's the second quote, which I will read, is another one where Albert is talking. And he says, "You kill, you lie, you rob, you hit old men and steal their boots. I only thank God you draw the line at swearing. It would have been just too dreadful otherwise."
See, he can be sarcastic too. He doesn't have to learn that one. He already knows that one. Exactly. I don't know where he learned it. Maybe it's innate.
There's so many more funny bits we would have loved to share, but they were unfortunately a little too spoilery. So you'll have to read the books to get them.
Yeah, really, I love the blend of stuff in these books, right? It's action and it's travel and it's humor and it's a little bit of romance and it's heist. There's a lot going on, which keeps it really interesting and means it's a breeze to read. You can go through these really fast.
Totally. And there are, of course, a bunch of other supporting characters that we haven't mentioned who you'll have to read the books to get to meet. And they are also fascinating and by various accounts also very funny. So
Number 5, our last reason you should read Scarlett and Browne is the mystery. They set up very early on in the books that, the world, how did it get this way? And then you learn some things about the characters and their backstories. And it really keeps you questioning and wanting to learn more. I am, like I said, partway through book 3 and I'm itching. I'm itching to find out certain things. I have some theories and I have no idea if they're even going to be addressed. I don't know. I want to read. I want to find out. I'm sorry. I have to go do that now.
We have to end this podcast.
Bye, Meg. You're on your own for the end.
We have to end this podcast so Lizzie can go read. But before we do that, I will just echo that I had very much the same experience while I was reading this. I had so many moments where I was like, I can't be interrupted. Like, I need to keep going. And I made a mistake at one point during book 3 to be like, oh, I'll read a few pages on my lunch break. And then I was like, oh no, this was a bad idea. Because I wanted to keep going because we were at a very exciting part. So there's so many interesting questions, and I had so many things I wanted to know. I wouldn't say either book, 1 or 2, ends with a cliffhanger, but even still, there's plenty of you want to learn more about in the future books.
There really aren't very many cliffhangers at all in the books at all. And actually, I appreciate that, but it's more like a heist. You spend the whole book wondering, how the hell are they going to pull this off? How the hell is this all going to shake out? How are they going to get out of this? How are they going to get into that? Whatever it is. So it's a really nice kind of constant ebb and flow of the tension rather than, I feel like sometimes a cliffhanger can be a little bit of a like, I don't know, you just did that to make me mad to the author. Yeah. Right?
Exactly.
It can be a little bit of a contrivance, and you definitely don't have that in these books.
Yeah, no, they really strike the balance of having a satisfying ending, but still leaving you wanting to learn more, which is, I think, the ideal situation for a book series like this. So I think that's it for our 5 reasons for today. Thing.
Thank you. I'm gonna go read now, so you wrap it up. Bye.
I will do that. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on Haunting the Narrative. We'll be back to talk more Lockwood Co. Thanks so much.